2016, we're in here. Let's go! Back with another movie review. And what is it this time? We're talking about the Flashpoint paradox. The Flash paradox. Justice League. Whatever the official name of this movie is. It's a long name. Regardless, we're in here. If you haven't seen this movie, do I recommend it? Yes. Already gonna say yes, I recommend it. As a movie, and as a fan of DC, absolutely. And as a fan of the Flash, oh, most definitely. Most definitely, because it hits so many points well. Now, here's why the movie's so good. And if I'm not mistaken, it does base, at least to a degree, off of a plot line that deals with Flash. What happens if Flash were to reverse things. It's times like these and with time travel. And it taught me lessons. It's movies like this and concepts when I was growing up. Okay? And cartoons and whatever. That taught me that, okay, yeah, reversing things may not work the way you plan on it. One event, that's all you change. One event, and seen for the better, seen for the positive, changes everything. As tragic as an event may be, it's horrendous. You change that, you're playing with a bunch of loaded dice. You don't know what may become of something. Really. You know, that everything happens for a reason. You know, a lot of people are convinced of that. If that's your view, that's fine. Fate. You know, fate has things set up. And I'm not talking out of believe in destiny, but fate. This is an example of why fate is such a prevalent conversation, prevalent concept to understand. Things meant to happen. We see what happens, you know. Before we get into that, before we get into the world that was created, let's talk about Flash and how he was portrayed. This is one of the best portrayals of Flash. And again, he was portrayed. I've seen him portrayed well, and I've seen him portrayed different versions. This is one of the best portrayals because you get insight into his mind, and he's been around. Justice League's been around for a while. But it isn't an old Flash. You know what I'm saying? It's not an old Barry Allen. It's a relatively younger Barry Allen. I mean, he's married and everything. He's established, so we can go off of that. But he's not too old to where he wouldn't have these thoughts. He's still dealing with the struggle of his mother's death. Yeah, he has these abilities, these powers and abilities, but he's struggling. He's like, what if he's dealing with guilt? He's dealing with a lot of things that people deal all the way up, sometimes to their very death, even in an older age. So he's dealing with these struggles as I don't even want to say a young man, as he may not be middle-aged, but as a man, he's dealing with these things. We didn't see anything about a father or anything like that. So, you know, that's something out of bounds. But, you know, here he is. You know, he's already had his rogues gallery, all kind, like, what was there, 6, 7 of them? You know, it was, whatever, there were 5, and then Professor Zoom, I mean, you had Captain Cole, you had the Top, Heat Wave, a couple other dudes, right? And then you had some boomerang screaming dude, and whatever. And then you had Professor Zoom, the Reverse Flash come through. And he was more or less the main antagonist of this whole thing, but not really. It's one of those situations that while he was a driving force as an antagonist, there were other factors involved in this as well. Because that's what happens when you start splitting storylines, right? Start splitting up realities. Okay? And so it was a whole situation of like, yo, a man so hell-bent on destroying in his rival, his enemy, that he will destroy everything else. That's crazy. Some can call that insane. That's completely irrational, completely illogical. He doesn't even care. He didn't even care about killing himself. As long as you're done, as long as you're dead. That's serious. That's some serious psychological damage right there. Why is Flash so bad for this dude? Or is this dude why is he so fixated on Flash? So it begs you to ask questions about this character. It's very interesting, about his psychological state. that was one of the key points in this movie, that both Thomas Wayne actually played as Batman, played a better role than I would have imagined. I knew he'd be good, but I wasn't expecting this. Like, I thought it would be Bruce. Nope, Thomas Wayne. So that made for a lot of sense. A lot of what ifs were answered, and other what ifs were proposed in this facet. Okay, and so why did his son get killed? But it's just a what if it would have happened that way. So, and I'll get more into the character of Thomas Wayne as well as others, obviously. But, you know, the remorse, the going back in time. We didn't see him at first race back. We just, you know, flipped over to the other world. But what was his wife? War? I'm trying to, I forget his wife's name, but that whole thing, she's trying to say, yo, you remember the prayer your mom taught you, the serenity prayer, and be able to accept what you can't change and all that jazz. And it's like, yeah. But it wasn't listening to the wisdom of it. Okay? And yo, the Justice, they all came. I mean, shoot. You had Superman come up in that piece. You had Batman. When they called, I guess they recognized the threat, because I guess the Flash won't call like that. But they weren't on something. They came loading and stuff. They came deeper than doggone the rogues, okay? They came stacked. Batman, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, Cyborg, freaking Aquaman. Am I missing anybody? There's 7 or 8 of them. I'm trying to remember. Who am I missing? That was pretty much everybody. But so yeah, they came by cellmate deep, like, and was Cat Marvel in that piece too? It was a lot of the same ones that were in Justice League War, okay? And if you're watching that video, probably will be in the description box below, as well as my movie review. That movie review I did of Justice League War, as well as my movie review of Son of Batman will be in the description box below. Anyways, so all these dudes showed up, and how they diffused it in the different ways, it was pretty creative, and it was a nice way to get the Justice League involved and all that jazz. Very good. Now, to the point of worlds being switched over. First of all, the animation. Clap it up. Almost on the same level with Justice League War. You know, the different environments they hit on point with the lighting and everything else. Everything was so well done, so seamlessly. I wouldn't even focus on the animation. It just was just like there, and it was presented before me, and just boom, 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 boom. Good. And it flowed seamlessly. Every setting was done well, was well constructed. You know, the whole thing was believable. Just truly done. I can't criticize it any way negatively. They just, you know, they created this post-apocalyptic world, but it wasn't completely. I mean, you had the interactions. Cyborg, and a different passage took. Cyborg was like this. You know, he was involved with the U.S. government, the president. He had connections, but he wasn't in too deep. And he had this whole special team. Again, Batman, Thomas Wayne, and Thomas Wayne, man, him and Cyborg, and how they knew each other, I don't know, but I guess because he's being Batman and Cyborg, you know, being Cyborg, they know information. They're huge about information, right? Thomas Wayne, and we see that Bruce is killed, and the Joker was actually Martha Wayne. I mean, that kind of event, that just goes to show, that kind of event, you don't know what's going to trigger a person. You never know what's going to be the trigger. They both went screws loose, but that trigger, whoa, that trigger was hot. That trigger was heavy, man. Whoa. And this Batman, I mean, he could put in work with throwing, and it's no wonder why Batman was like being beat around and something. It's like, if this is Bruce, why is he got to use gas? Well, it was Thomas Wayne, so he's not got the martial arts background and experience that Bruce does. Makes a lot of sense. Still got the crazy genius strategist mind, not the fighting genius though. So take that for what it's worth. Thomas in his skepticism, but yet believability in Barry when Barry's something. I mean, it makes sense because it's like, yo, how does this dude know all this stuff? And he's talking about being from a different place. And I mean, I guess if you're in such a world like that, I mean, you got the Themyscirians taking over. The Amazonians took over Britain. They just wrecked shop and just massacred. And you got the Atlanteans coming up, and you got pretty much World War III, World War IV going on. Makes sense. You know, they got weapons that can destroy the world pretty much. Makes sense. You know, Aquaman and that whole. It's kind of a Trojan War situation, you know. Freaking the affair, extramarital affair, which led to the killing. It wasn't a murder, but the killing. Diana, Wonder Woman, she had to kill, you know, the Queen of Atlantis because the Queen of Atlantis came at her, and then lo and behold, Aquaman is being pressured and he leads a war, and then that's leading to destruction. And then, I guess, taking over the planet. Like, it's crazy what happens when these mistakes. These decisions, that's one decision. That decision changes everything. It changes everything. You know, that those decisions, man. Those actions change lives, man. People gotta be. The whole thing is, one of the main themes of this movie is simple choices and decisions we make can have dire, massive consequences, especially with people of power. You know what I'm saying? Freaking, we saw Deathstroke up in this piece working with Lex Luthor, which was nice to see. I mean, they both got murked, but it was very nice to see in that situation. Very, very nice. You had dudes I didn't recognize fighting as part of the Resistance. Hal Jordan was in Green Lantern. But he flew, he died, but he flew. Pretty much everybody died in the end. But, you know, he flew as a pilot, which was really cool to see. Who else? Who else other than Cyborg was Cyborg. That was pretty much all the Justice League members. And Flash, and, you know, trying to repeat the experiment, but he somehow survived, and he was able to get it. And so there was so much going for him, and Flash not being Flash, Barry Allen not being Flash at first. There was a lot of things, man. And waking up and realizing, yo, this is an alternate reality. What the hell's going on? There's a war going on because of my actions. So he has to go back and just track down Barry Allen in the township. So just so much get you. It was more of a thinking movie. If you take the time, yeah, you can watch and enjoy it. The pacing was definitely slower than Justice League War. But, you know, it carried itself very, very well. Oh, and Superman, you know, that kind of goes along with the video I made. What if Superman would have landed in the 21st century? Superman, instead of landing in doggone, well, this was a little bit different, but Superman, instead of landing in Smallville, he lands in freaking Metropolis. Now, Superman coming out there, well, he didn't fully control his heat vision at first. But Superman being, instead of this big, powerful, muscular dude that we're used to, he's this little scrawny dude. Powerful as hell, but scrawny nonetheless. So, you know, just all those various factors. It's just well done, man. Just a well done story. The story is what character is movie. You know, the characters play their parts well. The dialogue was well done for the most part. You know, it didn't overly focus on one character. It actually introduced a bunch of characters, even a bunch of minor characters. Lois Lane was up in this piece, and she was doing her, but she was kind of helping the Resistance. So that was a really nice thing to see. So yeah, man, just a really well done movie. And for DC, it portrayed a lot of things very well from a DC universe standpoint. So I much respect it. Again, I highly recommend the movie. Overall, I gotta give this an 8.5 out of 10. It was an outstanding movie. Again, you know, the pacing at times is a little bit slow. Nothing wrong with it, but just reality. The pacing at times is a little bit slow. The doggone, you know, it was kind of a little haphazard of how they introduced, of when they introduced the characters. Like, Superman wasn't introduced till makes sense, I guess, but he wasn't introduced till almost the end of the movie, you know, and then he just flies away and then he comes back and friend and the whole situation. Did he survive, you know? It just was like, it was a story within a story, you know, they just wanted to show, like, it was a clear what if, so it didn't have any necessary repercussions, unless you want to consider the fact that he remembered that timeline. He was starting to forget it, his own being remembered, and he was able to carry the letter, which was really good from the father and the whole Bruce Wayne. And we saw Bruce Wayne cry. That was phenomenal. But yeah, besides some of the slow pacing, besides sometimes the character's introduction, besides, you know, unfortunately we really didn't get much from Aquaman and Wonder Woman, even though they were two major players in this movie. They led a war, but we really didn't see that. We did get to see the Aqualad and the other Aqualad, which was really cool, and what would have happened if they all were alive, which was really cool. What happened, Atlantis was definitely believable. We didn't really get to see much from the Amazonians, man. They were just these warriors and just out here killing. Like, I know we kind of got the same from the Amazonians, the Atlanteans, but we saw more from their abilities. The Amazonians just came in there like swords and like we need to see more from the two sides. I really think so. If they would extend the movie, show some more with these two sides, it would have been greater. You know, they did give us a backstory, which is cool as to why the war started, but they could have done some more with it. So, besides these minor critiques, again, 8.5 out of 10. Unexpected one. Like, comment, subscribe. Tell me your thoughts on the movie. And again, if you have not seen this movie, definitely check it out. All right, y'all. Have a beautiful day, beautiful night.